Urgent! In Pokrovsk, the Ukrainian armed forces have turned the tide of events. The fate of the war is being decided at this very moment. Urgent! In Pokrovsk, the Ukrainian armed forces have turned the tide of events. The fate of the war is being decided at this very moment. Our forces have simply torn down the tricolor. A hellish sweep has begun. Something incredible was caught on video. You have to see this. A fierce breakthrough by Ukrainian assault troops. The trap for the Russians is closing. All of this and more coming up, so watch until the end. Greetings to all of Ukraine today. I am Renata Aslanova, bringing you the latest events. At this very moment, Pokrovsk is boiling over as the Russians try to break through. To avoid and not to accumulate in the populated area, the defense forces are carrying out measures to block the enemy, conducting strike and search operations, and have reinforced the military units defending the city. And now a sensation! The Ukrainian armed forces have cleared the Pokrovsk City Council building and raised the Ukrainian flag there. Returned the Ukrainian flag to the City Council building.
The Ukrainian armed forces returned the Ukrainian flag to the City Council building. As shown somewhere in the video footage,
the Ukrainian assault group was tasked with making their way to the center to clear the City Council building and return the Ukrainian flag to it. The soldiers began their mission under the cover of night, moving quietly through the darkness in the city of Pokrovsk. Their task was to carefully approach and clear the City Council building, making sure it was safe and secure. After completing this important objective, they were to return the flag to its proper place, marking the successful completion of their mission.
Ukrainian troops entered Pokrovsk at night, surprised enemy forces, and had one minor injury. He said, "I want to go on this mission, so I will complete it." With determination and resolve, he set out to accomplish his goal. He made it through the challenges, and when he finally arrived, he proudly raised the flag, feeling a deep sense of achievement for completing the mission.
they cleared the building. The building is located
We took control of the building and raised the Ukrainian flag. The enemy is quickly destroyed. Regiment and other special units are entering the city. Meanwhile, Budanov's paratroopers burst onto the front line. Thus, GUR special forces also began a complex operation in Petrovsk. Military intelligence assault troops entered areas of the city that the Russian command considered to be under their control. The goal of the operation is to secure the supply routes for Ukrainian forces. It is noted that Ukrainian special forces launched an operation in Pokrovsk to secure supply routes from Russian control.
Helicopters and GUR special forces secured key Ukrainian logistics areas. And in human intelligence,
They showed exclusive footage of the Defense Forces operation in Pokrovsk. The video captures the dramatic and intense landing of paratroopers from a military helicopter, the destruction of enemy occupiers with advanced drones, prolonged and fierce tank shootouts, and immersive, captivating footage from the soldiers' body cameras.
Ukrainian forces are clearing Pokrovsk of Russians, stopping enemy advances and reinforcing troops.
The battle for Pokrovsk is the battle for Donbas. Military expert Dmitros Nihirov emphasizes this. Holding the city means maintaining control over the industrial heart of the region. It is here that the geopolitical balance is being decided. If Pokrovsk remains under Ukrainian control, Kyiv's position on the international stage will become unshakable.
Holding Pokrovsk right now is, first and foremost, a matter of further strategic importance, and it is crucial to maintain control of this area. Pokrovsk is vital for Donbas. Holding it boosts Ukraine's position and keeps U.S. pressure on Russia. We are holding out hope that we will be able to put additional pressure on the Russian Federation, possibly with Trump's help. It's no coincidence that this information has appeared. We are holding Pokrovsk and believe we can increase pressure on Russia, possibly with Trump's help. This news came as the Kremlin's special representative, Dmitry, visited the U.S. about tactical successes
in the Pokrovsk direction and in Kupiansk. The value of Pokrovsk lies in its energy and resources. Snehiryov reminds us that the area has enormous industrial capacity and reserves of shale gas. Their joint development with the U.S. could make Ukraine energy independent. Meanwhile, the General Staff has admitted that the capture of Pokrovsk has failed. In 2 months of fighting, the enemy has lost up to 16,000 soldiers. Urgent news from Pokrovsk, the hottest spot. This is where the course of the war is being decided. The Huar carried out an operation that the entire front is talking about. Meanwhile, real hell is unfolding in Kupiansk. Russian units are confused and losing control. Their plan has completely failed. All of this is in the following report.
What is really happening on this and other sections of the front is in the following report. Russian generals promised Kremlin leader Putin to capture Kupiansk and Pokrovsk, but failed to carry out the order. Putin ordered them to be taken by mid-October or by November. Actually, it was supposed to be by October 15th, but that deadline was missed. Then by mid-November, they were to capture Pokrovsk, Kremina, Kostiantynivka, and Vinohradivka. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky announced
the complete clearing operation in the region of Kupiansk
and the Kharkiv region from the occupiers. This region, situated in northeastern Ukraine, has experienced significant conflict. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, acting urgently, has responded to the situation.
With great attention to detail, carefully and thoroughly prepared a response.
Russian.
The head of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, falsely reported to the Kremlin dictator that Russian troops had completed the encirclement of Ukrainian forces.
Your fellow soldiers are currently and steadily advancing on all fronts.
However, Ukrainian forces held their positions despite the enemy shelling the crossings and trying to break through the defense.
The importance of capturing more territory in Donbas is to show that they are carrying out the so-called special military operations. However, Ukrainian forces held their position
despite the enemy shelling the crossings and trying to break through the defense. Ukrainian units have already managed to regain control over part of the buildings in the city. A military operation by Ukrainian forces is underway, with the objective of cutting off the enemy's supply routes and clearing the city. Several units are taking part in it.
A military operation by Ukrainian forces is currently underway, with the objective of cutting off the enemy's supply routes, which are important for delivering reinforcements and supplies to their troops, and clearing the city of hostile forces to ensure the safety of civilians and restore order. Several units, each with specific roles in the operation, are taking part in this coordinated effort. This operation began in September, marking a significant phase in the ongoing conflict.
In September, Russian occupiers managed to break through to Kupiansk via a pipeline. Against this backdrop, the situation around the city escalated. Now, the occupiers are trying to infiltrate the city disguised as civilians. When Ukrainian forces succeed in completely cutting off supply routes and finishing the clearing of Kupiansk, it will complicate the logistics of Russian units in this sector and may reduce their operational mobility. It took the Russian Federation's army 21 months to advance. Only and nothing else.
39 is a number that comes after 38 and before 40. It is written as 39 in numerals and spelled out as 39 in words. In Roman numerals, it is represented as x6, x9. 39 is an odd number, and it is often used in daily life, such as when counting objects or describing someone's age. For example, if a person says they are 39 years old, it means they have lived for 39 years.
Ukrainian troops walk to the front near Pokrovsk due to Russian drones.
Russians advance on Pokrovsk. In Pokrovsk, it is difficult to conduct combat operations using vehicles because in the city, the environment poses many challenges for military movement. The streets are often narrow and can be blocked by debris from damaged buildings, making it hard for vehicles to pass through. Additionally, obstacles such as rubble, abandoned cars, and broken infrastructure further complicate the use of armored vehicles or trucks. These conditions make it risky and complicated for military forces to rely on vehicles during combat operations in Pokrovsk.
There are a lot of people gathered in the area. There are also many large, imposing anti-tank hedgehogs as well as solid, heavy concrete triangles placed throughout the scene. Mainly, the enemy infantry uses motorcycles and buggies.
Anti-tank hedgehogs and concrete triangles are types of defensive obstacles that are commonly used to slow down or block the movement of enemy armored vehicles, such as tanks. These barriers are strategically placed to make it more difficult for enemy forces to advance. In this situation, the enemy infantry mainly uses fast vehicles like motorcycles and buggies, which allow them to move quickly and navigate around obstacles. Overall, as reported in the media, on
this section of the front, the Russians have concentrated. Russians entered Pokrovsk as civilians. The Russians
move through the city as if they were ordinary civilians.
and
Russian groups of 2 or 3 try to sneak through at night, but defense forces stop them. Main Russian units are mobilized, assault, and mechanized troops. Recently, Russians have not succeeded in Pokrovsk, where about 260 to 300 soldiers are present.
About 26 to 30% of all combat operations, which can include a wide range of military activities conducted in various environments such as land, sea, or air, are represented in this statistic.
In Pokrovsk are currently taking place in Pokrovsk itself. Moreover, the use of KBs accounts for approximately 50% of all such incidents. The use of guided bombs is concentrated on Pokrovsk, so you can imagine how tough it is for our guys. In Pokrovsk, as we told you, there are a couple hundred people, maybe from 260 to 300 Russians. The situation on the Kupiansk and Pokrovsk directions
remains dynamic. The fighting continues. The Russian army is suffering enormous losses in the Pokrovsk direction. Hundreds killed in just one day. And that's only in this area. Reports and local publications show Das sein dam dam da.
In built-up areas and tree lines, many dead Russians.
In order to save themselves, commanders will throw everything they have into the fight. Not to save their ranks, but maybe even their own heads. They won't hold back on manpower or equipment.
Russia committed significant manpower and resources to take this city. They infiltrated and were expected to act, but not to hold their positions. To accumulate. To hold your position, you need to have something to fight with. But what can you fight with if you have 10, maybe 20 Russian rifles? Well, 30 at most. And that's it. And that's only enough for a few hours. We've blocked the possibility of entering Kupiansk. Such groups have already, let's say, lost control. And those who remain are basically doomed where they are. If they don't want to lose their lives, it would be better for them to surrender, because they will be destroyed.
All of this is done just to please Putin and to present any kind of even the smallest advance as a significant victory.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The explosive strategy of the Ukrainian armed forces. Just recently, the most important thing is Russian forces disregard their soldiers to please Putin, while Ukraine's drones strike deeper and more accurately, hitting key targets and threatening blackouts. What winter campaign is planned? Find out in our report.
Military facilities, energy infrastructure, and the oil industry. The war has finally shifted onto Russian territory, and it seems the Ukrainian armed forces have chosen their targets in the enemy's rear, and they are ramping up long-range strikes.
One of the main goals is to force Russia to end the war, so that the cost of this war becomes higher for Russia. Ukrainian forces strike Russian military and energy sites.
Ukrainian forces are increasing long-range strikes to pressure Russia to end the war, making it more costly for them. These actions are happening every day. We have gathered the most high-profile episodes. Undoubtedly, without a doubt, without question, there is no doubt. There wasn't an explosion, a fire, or destruction. We have gathered the most high-profile episodes. Undoubtedly, the most striking event regarding Russian blackouts was the Ukrainian armed forces attack on the Moscow region on the night of November 1st. Monitoring channels. They reported hundreds of drones that took off to bomb Russia, and they weren't wrong. Although Moscow's energy system held up, entire settlements around the capital were successfully left without power. In particular, the Moscow suburbs and the city of Zhukovsky were left without electricity.
Ukrainian drone attacks caused power outages near Moscow by targeting energy infrastructure. I think that in December, this corresponding campaign will reach a new level with the use of Flamingo missiles almost every month.
At the port, you can see ships and boats gently swaying in the water while seagulls call overhead and workers move about their tasks. The air carries the scent of salt water, and people stroll along the docks, taking in the lively scene.
Local residents began taking photos and recording videos of this attack, the beginning of this attack. The naval operation was quite large-scale and effective, as well as spectacular. Local residents began taking photos and recording videos of this attack, and the beginning of this attack was also captured on video. Well, and the local emergency services released.
Traditional statements ask people not to film strike aftermaths, saying it helps the enemy. But what helps the Ukrainian armed forces is not videos by Russians who, in the fourth year, just noticed the war outside their windows. What really helps is intelligence data.
Including Western intelligence, which is what allows for such precise strikes. According to the Russian side's own assessment of the Ukrainian UAV strike, both the central overpass, which is the main oil pumping hub, was hit, and accordingly the strike targeted an oil tanker that was in the process of being loaded at the time of the attack. At the same time,
when possible, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to kill several birds with one stone in a single strike. That is, they destroy facilities that, on the one hand, are very important to the Russian economy, and on the other hand, are clearly military targets.
The strike was carried out on the industrial giant of Stavropol. When possible, Ukraine strikes targets that hurt Russia both militarily and economically.
The Stavrolan petrochemical plant in Budyonovsk, a major producer of petrochemicals, was struck for the first time. Analysts confirm it was a clear military target.
By the way, it is worth mentioning that the plant is located approximately 700 kilometers from Ukraine. The enterprise supplies essential raw materials both to the domestic market and for export. Therefore, this attack damages not only the military-industrial complex, but also negatively affects the export revenues of the Russian budget. The defense forces are also targeting Russian facilities in the occupied territories. A few days ago, this was especially felt by the residents of Crimea after one of the largest attacks on the peninsula in recent months. In particular, oil depots in Vardiske and Sevastopol were targeted.
Defense forces are targeting Russian facilities in occupied territories. Recently, Crimea residents felt this after a major attack. Oil depots in Vardiske and Sevastopol were hit. Within an hour, 2 large oil facilities in Crimea were disabled, leading to a total loss of stable logistical support for the occupiers. Especially against the backdrop of the recent and significant destruction and disabling of the largest oil terminal located in the port city of Feodosia, as well as the ongoing and worsening gasoline shortage that is currently being experienced within Russia itself, which remains the sole and exclusive supplier of this crucial resource.
The replenishment of Crimean oil depots. Most recently, on the night of November 4th, drones as well as Storm Shadow missiles from the Special Operations Forces managed to inflict damage not only on Russian energy infrastructure and oil depots, but also to significantly complicate their presence at the occupied terminals, effectively shutting down all military facilities within the affected area.
Ukrainian drones conducted strikes against substations in Luhansk, Alchevsk, Kadivka, and Pervomaisk. These are temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk region. There are reports of widespread power outages for consumers, a blackout. On the territory of the Russian Federation, in the past 24 hours, drone strikes by the armed forces of Ukraine, Kursk region, this is Zheleznogorsk, where a strike on the substation has left the entire city without power. Lipetsk region, this is the traction substation PS Usman, and accordingly the city of Oriol. A strike was carried out on the Oriol textile plant. This is what concerns the blackout. Now, as for
Regarding military targets, analysts consider the explosions at the dam near Belgorod to be one of the most successful long-range attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. The strike was so precise that no civilians were harmed. However, Russian units in the Kharkiv region found themselves cut off due to the flooding. The strike was so precise that no civilians were harmed. However, Russian units
in the Kharkiv region, they were cut off from their units by flooding, and the offensive failed. The main goal is to hit Russia's logistics, ammunition depots, airfields, aircraft, and troop concentrations to hinder Moscow's war machine. The aim is to strike the centers from which Russia commands the front and launches attacks.
This winter, Russian citizens will find out what a blackout is. And at the same time, he reminded that gas and oil burn very well. Obviously, that's the plan.
Ukraine's infrastructure is targeted, and Russians are warned of winter blackouts and refinery attacks. By November, about 40 refineries were out of service.
Well, as the saying goes, to be continued very soon.
Well, as they say, to be continued soon.